welcome. It is I, TJ again. And welcome, Jeminah. Jeminah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, TJ?
Very well, thanks. Jeminah, you are from the capital city of South Africa. And a lot of people don't know where the capital city of South Africa. Please tell them where the capital city is.
The capital city is Pretoria, none other than Pretoria. That's where I am.
Awesome stuff. A lot of people think that Johannesburg is actually the capital city of South Africa. And I always say to people, you don't know your geography. Pretoria, it is. And Jeminah, you've been in the property space. Who is Jeminah anyway? Let's start off from there.
Jeminah is a wife and mother of three,
Awesome.
originally Free State, married in Limpopo, living in Centurion, Pretoria, and a property professional.
Okay, nice. I want to ask of you that I've never asked anyone this question, but I'm going to ask you today. What was your first job that gave you money?
The first job that gave me money?
Yeah. And when was that?
2004.
Right.
I was an intern at an IT company called Waymark Infotech. That was my first job ever.
And how much money did that job give you?
I was earning 4,200 per month.
4,200 rand a month. And there you are. We are almost a couple of years later. You're now a property investor, and you have your own kids. You've got a family. And I just want us to jump into your business a little bit later, but I just want us to zoom in into, a lot of people, they now see you where you are, Jeminah, and then they think you never had a 4,000 rand job. You just started there. And for me, asking this question, I think you're the first person that I started asking this question, actually, because I've just seen a lot of people not appreciating where we are right now, or where we are coming from, and knowing the fact that where you're going in everything that you're doing, in all the deals that you're doing, is all part of the journey.
That's true. It is a part of a journey, and there's a lot of discipline that had to be applied along the way. There's a lot of work. Like they say, you never see what's below the iceberg. People see you today and they think this person is lucky. They don't know the blood, sweat, and tears that has been going on behind the scenes.
I like that. What has been some of your stumbling blocks, from the time that you were in intern and potentially now getting into being married, and then now starting up to do property investment? What were some of your stumbling blocks before you started doing investing and consciously investing?
I think the biggest one was mindset, getting your mindset in the right place. Here I was having dreams of what I could achieve. I always wanted to be a business person. Starting from school, I used to have a camera taking pictures of others, learners, and making some cash. Yeah. And I always thought I would be a business person at some point, but I didn't know what business I would do.
Right.
But once I got into property, it was, in fact, before I even got into property, the problem was the mindset, discounting myself, thinking, it's not easy to be rich. It's for certain people. Yet you have this burning desire inside. That was the biggest one for me. And when I got into property, I had to pay my school fees because I just went into it. Somebody said, location, location, location. Yeah. I bought a flat on the side, which I thought was great. And boy, did I pay.
Well, on this show, we don't call it paying. We call it school fees. I think the reality of property or anything that one does is that there's school fees to be paid anyways. It's either you can go to school and learn, or you go and do it yourself without the learning, and you're still going to pay the school fees anyway. But let's jump into why did you could have continued being a great cameraman. There was, I don't know how it could have evolved now, seeing that. If I tell my 12-year-old that this is Auntie Jeminah, she's a photographer, and you need to pay. She's like, why would you do that? Why can't I just do it with my cell phone? So, yeah. But if we are to talk about that business, right, it has evolved over the years. We still have photographers and things like that. But if we're to talk about that business, why did you choose? That was a business from an early age, right? Why did you choose actually like, nah, hold on, this is not for me? And then you went into property and you're like, okay, property, I want to do this. Why property though?
You know what? Photography has been something very close to my heart. It still is, because I just love freezing those beautiful memories.
Yeah.
But I now do it as a hobby. I just love getting people to see how beautiful they are when they used to think they are not that beautiful. But what I loved about property is when I looked at it, the first time I actually got in love with property, I was reading a book by Robert Kiyosaki, Cash Flow Quadrant.
Okay.
I borrowed from my colleague, who's now my husband.
Yeah.
It was that when you buy a property, you gain two things: equity and cash flow. And you make money from day one because you have to pick the right property. If you pick right, you make money from day one, and you gain both ways, equity and cash flow all the way. So I couldn't find another business that would give me that and allow me to just go on holiday without caring a lot or worrying while equity is growing and cash flow is coming in.
Nice.
That is what.
I like that, and I call Robert Kiyosaki Uncle Bobby because I've read so much content of his, attended so many sessions that I almost feel like he's part of the family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I really like his thinking in terms of property and actually in investment in general. But what do you focus in property? This property is quite wide. What do you focus in property?
I like multi-lets. That is my current property, with a big chunk of it in student accommodation at the moment. I just like I like apartments, renting out to young professionals, because when I was a young professional, the kind of accommodation that I saw myself, people around me living in, I thought, somebody has got to provide something decent. So one thing that I pride myself is that our properties are well maintained and very comfortable for my tenants.
Okay, so this is something, people, we kind of like see a problem and we leave it there and we go on, we talk about it and we don't do anything around it. But I was reading a book, I can't remember which book it was actually, where they were talking about the fact that you've identified a problem. If you are to understand that problem, you can actually turn it into business because it is a problem and no one is addressing it. And boom, this is what you have done.
Yes, that's true. That's what we have done. And the beautiful thing about it is that you don't even have to go searching for tenants. You get referrals, and you spend less on marketing by just treating your current tenants well and making the property livable for them. So it's as easy as that.
Let's talk about your multi-lets, right? In terms of, you're talking about young professionals, so a lot of them, I would think that if they're a young professional, potentially maybe they want to come and stay into a property that is finished, maybe Wi-Fi or maybe even breakfast. It's kind of like a mini hotel maybe. Do you go that far in your kitting up of your places, or how do you work around it?
Okay, so far I haven't got one where we do catering.
Yeah.
But we have finished properties which we provide for students, fully finished. All they have to bring is their books and blankets, and we provide everything. And sometimes they just need to bring their own cutlery and things to use in the kitchen. But we really go that far to try and make it easy, because some of them are traveling from very far. And imagine having to travel from very far. Now you have to get a bed, you have to get a microwave, all of those things. So what I try to provide is everything must be there. You must just find it easy to just go to just come with your clothes and go to the shop and buy the few other things that you need. And I find that it makes life so much easier for the parents as well.
Nice. You playing in a space where it's a little bit emotional for me. For sometimes I know it's a business, but student accommodation for me it's a very interesting business, because not only are you offering accommodation to other people, but you're actually providing accommodation to the future generation, to the leaders of tomorrow. And these guys are passing through your hands, and with your nurturing of within that property, you're actually creating who they can become tomorrow, right? And I'm going to ask you the question to say, what have been some of your unique stories of student accommodation? But I remember one of our early, this year, at the beginning of the year, we actually had 4 students that had never, like, they didn't know what when you jump into a shower, you got a mixer and you don't have 2 taps there. So they just jumped into the shower and boom, they opened up the hot water on the hot side. So naturally they got bent, right? And so the story within the house was that there is no cold water in the house. And because they don't know this, another student came in, they didn't know how to operate a microwave because they'd never seen it before, They're coming through from backgrounds where they don't see these things. And I'm wondering what has been some of your unique stories of having students at your one of your places.
Phew, I have a lot of stories to tell, a lot of stories, because when you're doing student accommodation, you're not just a landlord. You're not even a landlord. You are a caretaker for people's precious ones, some of the challenges, fortunately, we have a caretaker in our buildings who will at least guide them and show them around, help them how to operate things.
Yeah.
But some of the challenges have been, you have to find a way. Sometimes you need to do some counseling. I remember one of our students who wanted to commit suicide, having to wake up in the middle of the night, getting a call from the caretaker saying, hey, somebody just tried to commit suicide. So for us, it doesn't matter what time we wake up and go. We leave our children, and I'm fortunate to have a full-time helper who loves the kids, and it kind of feels like we're just living with her as part of the family. So we were able to wake up, go and attend to that. One of the times, one of the students was sick in the middle of the night, and they said, hey, he's fainting. Having to drive all the way to just make sure we are there, calling the ambulance, get him admitted in the hospital as a next of kin while waiting for the parents to reply, So that's the unique thing about it. You care for them. You have to look after their well-being, apart from supporting them for their studies. So that's why I'm saying there's a lot of stories. When you're doing student accommodation, you really have to care about these people. Some of the people, actually, I remember one lady who came to stay with us. She called me one morning, she was very upset. She said, you know what, we've just been robbed where I stay, and the landlord does not care. I've heard that you guys are very serious about security. And I said, come. Fortunately, we had somebody who was serving notice to move out at the end of the month. And she fortunately found space, and she's been with us even now. She's still staying with us because she feels very safe in our space.
Jeminah, you kind of like reminding me that the fact that you're doing business doesn't mean that you must not be humane. And for me, the two are intertwined, but also I have seen landlords that are so divorced emotionally, or even just being a person to where their income is coming from. And, you know, when I buy buildings and things like that, I'm going in there and I'm like, would you as the seller take a shower in here? You know, like, can we just exchange roles here with your tenant? Would you stay here? You know, and the answer for many of these places is no, right? But you are turning that around and you're almost becoming a mother figure to the students, right? Yes, you got a first line of defense who is your caretaker, but you are also fiscally involved. Now, how big is your student accommodation? How many kids now do you manage across board?
We're actually catering for 34 students.
Right.
34 students right now, yes. And I was actually talking to the caretaker yesterday. He was asking me about one of the students. He used a name I don't know. I said, for the first time ever, I have a tenant that I don't know. And then he told me the room number. I said, oh, okay. I gave him the name. So it's for me, it's that relationship that I have with them. I know each one of them by name. Uh, so it's really about caring. Even if you are the landlord, you have a caretaker, you need to have a certain level of understanding for your tenants, which actually helps. It's one of the things that some of the people keep on coming back, because when they're having challenges, they can talk to me. They know that, okay, if I have spoken to the caretaker and I feel that I'm not comfortable, because there's a lot of politics, trust me, with students. And they know that at some point I will listen to them. When they have explored the other avenues, they can come to me and we speak and have their issues resolved. So you don't need to manage everything yourself, but for me, when it comes to their well-being, it's very close to my heart.
Jeminah, you what you're doing there is remarkable. Odd 30 students, it's a lot already. So you got 30 plus your three, and potentially your husband being a bigger baby. Because sometimes my wife says to me, I'm being a baby. But I almost want to say that all of this is on your shoulder, and you are intentional about the type of caring and nurturing that you are giving to your tenants, to your customers, and I mean, because they fit in all of that. And the question that I want to ask of you is why? But why do that as opposed to running a business where the caretaker knows everyone, they manage it, and you are just managing the finance part of it? Why do you want to focus on the humane part or side of the business?
It's just me. I believe I'm naturally a nurturer of
Yeah.
some sort. Everywhere I go. Um, the same with my family. What I try to do is to live the values that I want to instill in those around me.
Right.
Even my children, they know that I may not always have time for them, but there are certain things that we do together. Uh, be grateful. We have moments in the house where we say, let's just talk about what we're grateful for. And each one of us can share that. If you start to do that, you are grateful for what you have, the people surrounding you, then you start seeing them in a different eye. And when you try to understand each person around you, the relationship seems so much better than when you're just treating them as the same, all the same. Because all of us have had different experiences. Each of the tenants has had different experiences. One has had both parents, one had a difficult father, therefore, they expect all men to be difficult and not get along very well with the building manager. So, trying to not judge until you understand the people around you, it actually helps make the relationship much more easy to manage, much more closer. And that's how I do it. I
Jeminah,
just try.
I'm almost forced to ask this question. You say, where did you pick that up from? I mean, like, where does it come from? Like, from your parents maybe, from are you being intentional about it? Like for instance, you just said, some of your students, they come from different backgrounds. Like for me, I grew up without my biological father, so I am intentionally learning how to be a father. And it's coming out of the fact that I didn't have one, right? And yes, I ended up growing up with a foster father, but he wasn't my biological one. So for that, my reason of learning how to be father is I'm thinking there's no one who really gave me this platform, right? So I have no benchmark of being a parent. It's all on me. But I'm learning how to do it. So I've got books that I'm reading. I've got seminars that I'm attending. I've got online courses that I'm taking. Do I take everything? No, but I take the ones that is, that speaks to me. And for you, with the way you're raising your immediate kids and the way that you are raising the kids that you've been, that have come through to be your customers, and you're being a custodian of that, where does that come from?
I think some of it comes from my mother.
Yeah.
Because my mother was one nurturer. She was that one person who would share something with the neighbor, even if it was the last that we have. If she came with some fruits and she finds that it's me and 5 friends, and maybe she has one orange, she would split it among all of us.
Like, why, ma? Can't we eat it later?
Exactly. But she would split it for all of us. She was cared for the people around her. And I think that's one thing I admired about her. And I found it easy to do. I just found it happening naturally. And when I'm one person who also believes in each one of us have got a role to play in society.
Right.
And even with my employees, I try to find that one thing that you are passionate about so that you can do it more often. Because when you do that, you feel fulfilled. And for me, it fulfills me to be able to do what I can to nurture the people around me. It's just a matter of fulfillment. I don't even have to do it.
I love the way that you do business. And I like the way that you just carry yourself and that aura, passing it on to other people, your kids, your tenants, and everything around you. Well done on that journey. I am sure people will see through you for who you are, and those that you communicate to will cling on to who you are rather than the services that you're providing. The services becomes a second value add to them, but they're going to come to your business because of you, so that, well done on that. You've been on this journey. When did you start?
You mean with the property journey?
Yeah.
I started in 2008 when I bought my first investment property, which was a flat in Sunnyside. Right. Biggest mistake of my life and lesson learned. I had just met my husband. We just started becoming close, and we found that we loved property together. And there was this agent who would distribute a list of properties available. So one day we found one property. It was a 2-bedroom flat for the price of a bachelor. And I thought, this is great. Fill in an offer to purchase, send it before even viewing the property. Big mistake, because we did not even do research. I just thought the location is great. I know that it is in Sunnyside, Pretoria. That's a very good area. It's always busy. Yeah. But after registration, go and view the property and find it to be a 1-bedroom flat. It had a parking, and you could not even put a car in that parking. The parking had a pavement running through it. And by then we bought this property, and we had to find a way to make it work. There was already an agent managing it, and I thought, let's just use the same agent. Called the agent, the owner gave me the numbers, and I said, please continue to run it for me. Here are my banking details. Rent continued to come in. And after a few months, rent stopped coming in.
Okay.
And I started querying with the agent, why is the rent not coming in? She said, the tenant is not paying. So I decided eventually, because it was now 2 months without rent,
Right.
I went there to check for myself. And there was 16 people living in that one flat. It was run down. Everything in there was a mess. So that's why I'm saying that was the biggest mistake. And I had no formal agreement with the agent except just telling them run it. Check the electricity bill from the municipality. It was over 10,000 rand. And I said, let's give these tenants notice. And they had to move out. So I had to fire the tenant and the agent, but I was left with that huge electricity bill to pay. So that was the beginning.
What about water rates and taxes?
I had to pay those from my pocket. Because when I bought that property, we thought it would be a 2-bedroom flat, so it made sense for them. But as a 1-bedroom flat, we had to rent it out for half of, almost maybe 2/3 of what we were hoping to get, which didn't even make it break even. So I had to top it up by about 1,000 a month. And now on top of the top up, I had to pay the area electricity because it was with the municipality. So that was a big lesson for me.
Jeminah, so with your story, I'm kind of like, what motivated you not to go and view the property?
You know what? I think it's a sales technique that now I never allow anybody to use on me.
Right.
Of creating a sense of agency.
Yes, so, yes.
They created a sense of agency. They said, here's a good property. It's a 2-bedroom flat. You could rent it out for like 4,500 rand.
Right.
Only there is a 1-bedroom which you could only rent out for less than 3,000 at the time. And I thought, okay, it must be a good deal. If it's a 2-bedroom, there's no way that I could not rent it for enough. So that's what motivated me. And I just thought, remember, I was an amateur at the time. I thought, it's perfect. So there's no way I can go wrong. And so many things wrong about the deal. But I'll never make the same mistake again.
But in reality, this was false advertising, right? Because they were selling a 1-bed and they were saying it's a 2-bed. Did you ever take them on, or you just accepted your reality now and say, hey, we are here now, so let's make it work?
So, yes. Firstly, I was excited that it's a first investment property. I was like, I'm a landlord,
Yes, yes.
And now having to swallow the bitter pill that the property is not bought. So the agent suggested, you know what, let the owner just create another bedroom. So they basically partitioned the flat to create another small bedroom. But now the flat did not even have a living room. So still, you could not rent it for much. You couldn't let it out for much if you are renting it to one person.
I know the situation. I can see it in my head because I don't know Pretoria very well, but Sunnyside, I've been there before. I've looked at 1 or 2 buildings, and I can almost see what you're talking about, because I think the older buildings, they come in relatively bigger, 1 bed, maybe like an 80 square, coming to maybe about 100 square, right? So you've got this huge dining, right? And you can still partition it and maybe have a small, it might not be even like 5-10 squares for a dining, and all of a sudden you've got 2 bedrooms. And maybe this is what they were talking about.
Yeah, but it definitely was false marketing.
Yeah.
And I think they did it to a lot of other people that were like me, because shortly after that agency actually closed down.
Oh, no.
So I believe somebody who was more courageous than me did take it up, and eventually closed them down. I never saw them in the market again.
So a lot of people at this junction, Jeminah, a lot of people would have thrown in the towel and say, this property, it's a lot of scams. I am not doing it ever again. But you soldiered onto buying more properties, onto venturing into something that is more complex, which is student accommodation. Why?
It's because I loved property. When I went into it, I thought, this is it. I'm going to do it. And when I got that raw deal, I felt this is a lesson learned, because I will never buy a property that was never viewed. I will ensure that I do my numbers at least. And after that, got ourselves a mentor. I was working now with my husband. We got a mentor who is also in property, and I really admire him. He plays a low profile. He's not big on social media. I think I kind of take after him with that, because I like that, playing a low profile, because when people start seeing you as big, they forget that you are human. You start attracting these friends that are not really true friends. So
yeah,
we started learning from him, and that's how I got the courage, because we could look at somebody who is a success story in property, and they did say that you are going to see a lot of things you never thought could happen in property. So I just thought, okay, that's one of them. Let's find a way to move forward. It wasn't too expensive a property. I managed it myself afterwards, and eventually it kind of broke even when we sold it. And then after that, I found other properties that were more profitable. And I just loved that. The idea that I can actually become financially free through property helped me to hold on to the ideal.
Let's talk about the mentor part, because a lot of people that have come to this show that I've interviewed, I would say 90% of them, they've had some form of a mentor of a coach, right? I certainly had mine. I still have, actually. And I've evolved, like what I was telling you earlier on, that I actually have, at the moment, a parenting coach. So I've got a coach who's my go-to guy for being a parent, right? And someone the other day asked me to say, why do you need a coach for being parent? And I said, there's lots of things that I don't know. I need to improve myself. So I want my kids to learn the best of me. If Usain Bolt can have a coach to run, don't we all know how to run? We all know how to run, isn't it? But he's had coaches over his whole career, and guess what? He's still holding the records at the state. So if I get a coach for parenting, I think my kids have a better chance to be greater people tomorrow, because I'm just as human as everyone else. And I want to ask of you, Jeminah, what have been your benefits that you have seen by having a mentor and a coach?
I actually like that you're saying a parenting coach, because I always say to people, for every area of my life that really matters, I have a coach or mentor.
Right.
You want to learn from somebody who is successful in that area. Sometimes it might just be somebody who is successful in the area, and you read their book and you try and think, when situations arise, what would they do in this situation?
Sure.
So actually a good one. The thing I love about mentors and coaches is that you pay school fees that you know. You don't have to make the same mistakes as the ones they have made. So you're basically saving yourself the pain of having to go through all of that. Thinking about the first mistake I made in property, I wouldn't have made that mistake if I had somebody guiding me and running ideas by them every time, and I don't think I would have made the same mistakes. So I feel that with the support system of a mentor or of a coach, you have better chances of making it or reaching your goal.
100%. I like that. I'm going to come through to one of my questions that I like to ask, to say, if you had to look at your journey right now, right, and before you started property, and with what you now know now today, what is the kind of like one thing that you can say, you know what, TJ, I underestimated X before I was in property, but right now, without X, I would never do a deal.
The one thing for me is the importance of researching the property thoroughly and doing your numbers.
Right.
And when you do your numbers, have a best case and a worst case scenario and an exit plan.
Okay.
Right now,
things there that you put in place.
Yes.
Okay.
You have to have that in place because you never know how things will turn out. For example, right now, there's a lot of uncertainty I've realized about student accommodation. For people who don't have an exit plan, they are panicking right now. Some people are actually just selling just to get out of it because they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And for me, I see an opportunity right there. I see an opportunity because all those three things were in place. Best case scenario, worst case scenario, and an exit plan.
Do you need to be making money in all three scenarios in your view?
Yes, that's the aim. You have to make money because that's the plan. That's why they say in property you make money from day one.
Sure.
When you don't buy you don't make money when you sell or when you rent it out. You make money from day one when you buy it because it's either you make equity or you're going to have good cash flow. And if you didn't do your numbers, in the worst case scenario, you're going to lose a lot. You're going to lose out. Yes. So if you really do your research, you don't have to lose out.
Awesome stuff. Jeminah, I'm coming through to the end of our podcast. It's been great having you around. But a couple of questions that I want to ask of you is that, do you have any favorite business book that you'd like us to share with others that has really impacted your life, or should I say your property journey?
You know what? I have so many books, and right now I can think of two. Can I share two?
Yeah, go for it.
So one that I've seen to provide a solution for a situation that a lot of people are in is a book called The Wealth Chef by Ann Wilson.
Okay.
She talks about if you have how do you look after your finances, getting out of debt. How do you do that while you find you are still living life? Because a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to be able to save once I'm debt free. So her approach is you manage your debt while you are getting out of debt. You must start developing the habits that you want when you are successful, because you don't have to wait until the end before you can live the life that you desire. So it's I think that's my favorite book. Another book that I loved is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, because the principles that are in there, they've helped me because my biggest challenge was mindset. So it has really helped me build the mindset that I feel is taking me to where I want to go.
Awesome stuff. Thanks for those nuggets. If you had to go back to your younger self, right, what advice would you kind of like give yourself when you're much younger? When you're an intern on that 4,000 rand?
I would say, do not discount yourself. I remember when I was once in church and our pastor said, go and buy property. Buy in Arcadia, buy in Pretoria Central, buy in Sunnyside. I just listened to him and I thought, he's talking to the rich people in church. Thinking about it now, I qualified to buy 2 bachelor flats at the time because the flat was about 70,000 when I first had that. I could have bought, yet I was paying rent where I was living, but I discounted myself. So I would say to her, never discount yourself. If you hear advice, think about it. Would it benefit me? If yes, find a way to make it happen for you. Don't just discount yourself and say it's for other people.
Jeminah, I think that's a very important point there that you bring up, right? You discounting yourself based on who you know yourself as at that time, you know. And I think exposure really gives us that ability to start thinking very differently and be able to see ourselves in the shoes of those that we are thinking it's meant for. And certainly I was in the same boat with you where I would think that certain things are for certain people. And I'm not there yet, but but I just didn't know it. So I was the stumbling block to myself. Yeah, and yeah, thanks on that. What does success look like for you, Jeminah?
Success for me, it's seeing myself running a business that can take care of me, whether I go to work or not on the day. It is being able to look at more people in the society that are benefiting from my business. That's the impact I would like to have. I would like to not watch other people making an impact on the economy. I would like to make more impact in assisting the people around me. For me, that would be success because I'm very much on fulfillment in what I do.
Awesome stuff. Boom, ladies and gentlemen. That was Jeminah from out in Pretoria, and you got it right. For me, what is amazing about your story, Jeminah, is how humble you carry yourself throughout, number one. Number two, how intentionally you want to impart others on this journey. So I thank you. And any closing comments from your side?
Closing comments is for everyone who wants to get into property, invest in yourself, because action without knowledge, as they say, it can be deadly. It's dangerous. You have to take action, you have to be consistent, you have to persist, but invest in yourself because you only have yourself to help you out and to reach your goals.
Awesome stuff. Thanks a lot and God bless and goodbye.